week last week. I said, you know, what's up, basically, and she said, well, you know, it's the plan writer, Aaron O'Reilly. O'Rourke, thank you. I didn't think O'Reilly was right. O'Rourke had reviewed it and thought the land base was sufficient and didn't have any other issues, and I said, okay. I said, so it's approved then? And she said, well, it's not technically fully approved. She's like, but I can get that done for you right away. I said, well, what? I said, I'm not asking you to wreck, because I said, well, I have a meeting on Tuesday, and I had just said, you know, I'd like to give an update. So she goes, well, we can probably get it finalized. And I said, oh, so Aaron has to do more? And it sounded like there's stuff she had to do. Maybe it's just more administratively type of stuff. So I think on Friday afternoon, she called and left me a message and just said that they've gone through, they've dotted all their I's and crossed their T's, and it's officially approved. So I don't, did you send it over the weekend, your email to me, or was that just yesterday?
I checked yesterday on the,
wasn't
on the DNR website, it says pending still.
So it still says pending, but I guess the question is kind of where the motion is sitting that we made last summer, and I did re-listen to the audio file, and you know, there's quite a obviously lengthy discussion, but I mean the gist of it was that Tom's motion was to approve the permit contingent upon the DNR's approval of the nutrient management plan update that was due by, you know, this past May.
March 31.
Yeah. It was March?
March 31.
Okay. So, again, whether it's on the website, I mean, I'm just telling you that what they told me is that it is officially approved. And I guess regardless of if it's approved now or if it's approved and we get something in the mail in, you know, 2 days, I don't really think, based on the motion, I think it just, I don't think there's anything you need to do now. I think it would just become approved. Tell me if you don't think that's right, but that's
the way the motion that you know, we said if the DNR got all their I's in order, it'd be approved, but
yeah.
it seems like they haven't really looked into it and.
Well, I mean, that's, so I think that's the issue. So, I mean,
do we want more info than what they've approved?
Well, and I don't think.
Can we make it stricter, I guess, or are there more requirements that we want to have?
I mean, I'm interpreting it as if they approve it, it's approved by you.
Yeah.
Now, if you have your other concerns with this new update and you want something different, I think that's gotta be a different process than, I don't, again, I'm not a legal expert, I don't know if you can say, we take that back, we wanna change our motion.
Can we put in some more language there, is that gonna make any difference?
Well, I mean, so the language into what? Into the
Well, I'd like to
motion, or-
see the number of parcels where he's spending whatever on the acres, that's what my concern is. Does he have enough acres to handle all of it are spreading? And that's been a kind of an issue beforehand.
Well, is that not part of what he has to provide information for his nutrient management plan?
I mean, yes and no. Like he had to submit, you know, his fields and stuff, and I think there's a lot of unknowns. You know, some people are saying that the land isn't available. I think there's others. Maybe Bob wants to speak to the opposite of that.
We weren't sure
on
he
some
had
of
enough land
the farms.
previously, you know.
So what we heard was hearsay, it wasn't specific that these are the parcels he says he has, and these are the ones he actually doesn't.
That's right.
I can't,
That's why I'd like to see the parcels that he actually has the spread out.
I really kind of thought DNR was going to require, you know, those verifications like they did in
think so.
Bayfield County. So I'm really just shocked that they chose not to do that. It's not required to. So again, you get into the whole, well, doing it for one county is something of precedent. Should you do it for all? Like, but I guess it doesn't change the fact that DNR didn't, and your motion was to approve it. So I think I would advise, like, I feel like you need to move forward right now, like, again, assuming it's officially approved, that it's approved, that they have a permit. I would be fearful of that now if you said, well, we said that, but now we have other concerns, because maybe that should have been addressed at that time. And I could see that being, you know, AB's like, come on, I've been waiting for 8 months and now I wanna build, and now you're gonna, now if you want some further investigation, we could look into the ordinance to see, you know, we don't have any wording about those types of verifications. So I don't know, you know,
Well,
if we get a checklist, you know, each year, whether it be this current one, or, you know, if we get one next spring from him, or for any other farm that's submitting a plan in, like, if you want to hire an agronomist to really go through it, that's something we could consider. But then again, it's gonna be, well, DNR says it's good, why isn't it good enough for the county? And it's kind of the same thing you went through with AB 15 years ago on this first one. Like, you know, a plan is a plan and can kind of be interpreted differently by two different plan raters, so.
But the DNR is so concerned about water quality all the time, you know, and then they basically said hardly anything about this one. You go spread whatever, as much as you want, any place you want, and they're concerned about any of that, the way it looks to me. But that's,
Does the DNR with, is there a narrative release, or is this just like, they check a box, approved, disapproved? You know, and that goes, I mean, or is it just essentially, they go through theirs, you know what I mean? I mean, is there any narrative on the approval on, I mean, I know you said it's not online yet, but I mean, is there?
Do you know how in depth it does go? You guys probably.
Yeah, I mean, they should give some sort of narrative. I haven't seen anything yet. As far as I know, the plan that's submitted right now is the exact same plan that was submitted last year that we had all the questions around, minus 300 acres that was Ducharme property and then was sold to Mycelium LLC, and they didn't want it, so they took out those 300 acres. There's still 106 acres, the Adams property, and another 27 point something that's Gruber Family Farms, and both of those landowners are still on the nutrient management plan and have told us, this is not hearsay, this was told to us directly by them, that they would never agreed to be on that, and at least Gruber Family Farms said that they want off. And I contacted the DNR about how that would even happen. That was 3 weeks ago. I've heard nothing back. I haven't heard anything from the DNR for like a month at this point.
but then where is he gonna get all the land for the second CAFO lot?
Well, this is just land for this CAFO.
Yeah,
Well, I don't know, how many acres was he? I
It
don't
was
remember.
1,400.
That was my guess.
He's down to 1,100 now without that 300, and there's another 130 plus acres still with a big question mark by it.
Yeah, he didn't replace the 300. Do you want
No.
Mr. Mitchell to speak
Do
on?
you have anything to,
I can tell you that, as regards to the Adams estate, that we did have permission and worked with her to put it into the nutrient management plan, that it is correct. We have not, since her passing, brought it up to her sons, who now control the farm, because first of all, you're 2 years or more away from it. They're busy with the estate, and I do not speak for them, but I assume that they understand that good farming practices will allow for use of that manure on their property. We have not had that discussion, but there has been no change in my mind from when we had the agreement with Mrs. Adams.
I've spoken with Jeff Adams and he is not on board with that. Now, he is a part owner of that, but I've spoken with him personally on multiple occasions. He was frankly a little bit perturbed that he was on that, that the estate was still on there and they had not been approached at all yet. I think it's a pretty low bar to set to require leases to show verification that you have permission to spread on someone's land. I think that's a very low bar that the DNR has not set, and given the track record of having acreage that is not available on the nutrient management plan, I think that would set, it's new evidence coming in, and I think that would set a pretty easy precedent for the county to say, you know what, we want to relook at this.
Do you have any sort of contract for operation or anything like that?
I have rented that farm for 17 years with them. So I can have further contact with them regarding that issue and
Yeah, I'm not asking you to provide, I'm just, like if you said, well, yes, I signed something with Mrs. Adams, for a 5-year operation term or something, like, I don't know if that has some sort of rift that if it goes to the children that, that would carry forward, so
there's
you'd
no
have.
contract at all that regards anything like that or.
Sure, no, that's.
I think it's perfectly fair for you to ask for that. I think it's perfectly fair to ask for that to be provided. If the agreement, I'm not saying that the agreement isn't there, I'm just saying it's perfectly fair for the county to ask for that to be provided to them, so then there's no gray area, it's black and white.
The dilemma that I think that you might face in a situation like that is that acreage reporting by a producer is the producer's business, and that's proprietary information. You can see how many acres I have. You don't know how many acres of corn I have or anything else. You cannot get that information from the ASCS. That's proprietary information, and if you ask for it, you bring in FOIA, and you just can't do that.
Not for CAFOs.
Not for CAFO.
That's all public information. It's all in the nutrient management plan.
What I was getting at was the farm and the acreage, and that's where it goes.
So, a couple questions. One is, if he had 1,400 acres, would that meet this, would that sort of meet the standard? Or would that be enough acres for this CAFO?
But keep in mind that what he's asking is not your opinion, what you think he needs, it's what the DNR requires, because I think we're looking at two entirely different ideas here.
What the DNR requires is not very clear, right? So like, my opinion should have like 3 or 4 acres per animal unit. The attorneys we've worked for red flag anything that's under 1 acre per animal unit. We've seen the DNR approve things under half an acre per animal unit. Then it's based on their phosphorus index, which is a complicated calculation based on a multi-year balance and everything. So it's not really, there isn't like a set, you have to be above or below this number.
DNR doesn't have, there's 1 animal, you need 1 acre, is what you're saying, there's not a
They don't
set
have
table
a
that says.
concrete number that you have to be above or below, it's a more complicated.
So then my follow-up question is, wouldn't it be reasonable for the county, for our committee, or for Dave, if we directed Dave to ask for further verification of, the land in the nutrient management plan? I mean, wouldn't it be just, at least we're asking the question, or we're bringing the question up? Can you give us more verification that the land that is in the nutrient management plan is, is there?
Is available.
Is
So
it
who are you gonna ask that question?
To the DNR. They're the licensing organization, so what we're saying is, to them, we're hearing all of this. And so, can you give us more verification as to the land that he says he has in his control to spread manure? That's, you know, and if they ignore us, they ignore us, but I think we should at least ask the question, you know, we're hearing that he doesn't have under his control all the things, all the land that he has in his nutrient management plan. So, can you verify that, or do you know, did you verify it? You know, I mean, just a simple question,
But then you could have, say he's got 1,100 acres or whatever, but is he gonna spread manure on every one of those acres? If
Right.
you've got a farm out here with, say, 200 acres, maybe you can only spread manure on 50 or 75 or 100, you may
Yeah.
not be able to spread on the whole farm,
I just think it's critical that
so.
we as county representatives
I think
ask the
we
question.
could, that would be the least of our, you know, inquiries, and at least see if they're gonna work with us at all, and if we inquire about the number of acres and the landowners.
So then the question becomes, if they say, we checked the nutrient management plan, it looks fine to us,
I mean,
don't we have to follow our ordinance?
we are. I mean, how are we not following our ordinance if we're just asking for, we're asking the question. I mean, we're
But
not
what
suing
I'm
them, we're
asking-
not, you
But what I
know.
wanna know then is if they refuse, say, no, we're not, we did this nutrient management plan, it looks fine to us.
Then we're set with,
Then
you know, what do we do? I mean, how?
We don't have
forceful-
much
Yeah, right.
recourse to do anything after that, if, you know, they're the higher ups that are, proving all this stuff. You
I
know.
think we should ask the question.
So a written letter,
Yeah,
That's all we
requesting-
would need, yeah,
yeah. You can, you know,
and see what they say
you
back.
understand, Dave, what we're trying to get to.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's just gonna be very simple, and see what the reaction is. You know, they may come back with more questions to us too, like, what do you wanna see, or what do you,
right?
I think that's a-
why do you wanna see it?
That's a fair question.
I don't know, but I think it's a fair question.
Yeah.
In my mind, I've gotten enough, feedback from enough folks, and frankly, you know, always my concern is the water resource in our area, and, the geology and the geography, of Crawford doesn't lend itself to these types of operations. So I think we have to be extras, do our due diligence to try to, protect it. So,
Well,
for me, and again, I might be, you know, the minority, but I think, we need to ask at least that question, you know. Are you comfortable with the verification of the land that is in the nutrient management plan? And do you need to do a little bit more investigation? Or, you know, just asking the question, because it's coming from the county, it's not coming from a citizen,
Yeah,
it's coming from the land use committee. So it should carry some weight,
Need to
hopefully.
know, does he have enough land to spread manure
Right.
and keep it under the new?
And we have time, it's not like, you know, he's gonna spread manure tomorrow. So,
Or
But
even
his
next
permit
year.
is
or even
being-
next year.
But his permit is being held up to start building until we,
Maybe it's not.
But
Maybe
basically,
it's-
his permit isn't held up because it
Yeah.
was, the DNR approved it, his permit is
Yeah,
under
but
motion
according
8
to
years ago.
according to
Right.
the gal, it's been approved, right? I think
so
we
he
should,
could start building tomorrow.
if
Yeah.
If the DNR says go ahead, I guess we
Right.
could.
Okay.
but I still think we should,
We could still
Thank
ask
you,
for
Chris.
this info.
And I'll probably look to get like an actual, you know, written confirmation that it's been approved, and then we'll actually issue a permit, so at that point, but, okay, so I will definitely do that, and I'll send a copy to you guys too, but, that'll eventually lead to the question of, other options moving forward on,
Right, and I think that's a whole new,
We
you
can,
know, that's a meeting in itself.
we can,
I mean, but I think, we do need to beef up however we can, our part of this process, so that we, have a little bit more, I don't know.
well, we pretty much just let the DNR decide
Yeah.
Well,
everything.
isn't that what the state, I mean, we have to, not only what we wanna do, but we have to make sure that the state will allow us to do what we wanna do.
Yeah,
Because that's another issue, because I know that the
Yeah.
majority of their policy is that you can be no more restrictive than the state.
all right.
And so I think, if I'm not mistaken, our ordinance follows the state, correct?
yeah,
I'm sure it does, yeah.
yeah.
But I think there are some things that we could, include in our ordinance that we don't have currently, that would, give us a little bit more, protection of, the water resource that we're trying to protect.
With livestock in general, not necessarily just from the CAFO standpoint, but as far as, like our livestock sighting, everything else, when last, as far as the county, has there been anything updated or in writing on that recently? I mean, obviously, it's, the operations that are here, even if they're not CAFOs, are more, I mean, we're double the cows we were when I was in high school 20 years ago. Neighbors are, the same boat in that. I mean, and we're obviously already, we've got more I's to dot and T's across, even not being CAFO with the livestock. With, nutrient management plans, some of that, tied to the farmland preservation, but in general, in the county, do we have much on the livestock sector in general? This down, or is that kind of too?
I mean, we have our two ordinances. We have the manure storage, so that's for anything more than 30 days, or a certain volume, 7,500 cubic feet, 7,000 cubic feet. So that trips that permit, so that's gonna work on the construction, make sure it's a safe, sound structure, and then the nutrient management plan. And then the livestock siting also, if they're so big, then that one comes into play. So, we haven't updated, we tweak minor things in that, but we had the CAFO moratorium 2 years ago, and the study group that came up with a list of options per se, and that was created over like 8 months, and then that was kind of the end of it. And then the moratorium ended, and there was no changes, no updates, no new things. So, I mean,
Who was on that committee, the study committee?
It was,
Was it AV and his wife and mother?
No,
Or was that,
was the.
what one was
Marietta.
that?
That was Marietta.
That was, okay, that was Marietta one.
their plan writer was
Nikki Wagner?
Nikki Wagner, myself, UW Extension,
Janet.
Jessica was in it.
Janet,
Janet
Janet
Witter,
Witter, yeah, we had was it one citizen appointee?
County Health Department,
And then a couple committee members, I can't remember.
Dave, you were on it.
Was,
he was the lead.
Both Daves were
Yeah.
on it.
Dave Wilson was the lead.
so.
Wasn't
and I mean, we have that document if anybody would like to see it. It was,
It's a good document to share.
With the hazard mitigation plan up for update, I mean, wouldn't CAFOs fall underneath that? I mean, that's a perfect time to put something in there to update the livestock siting ordinance or the CAFO ordinance that apparently hasn't been updated in quite a long time.
and I get where you're going, like what is the hazard? A catastrophic failure of the pits?
Water,
Things like that, or?
water hazard.
I mean,
Fire is
protect,
one that
do
others
we,
bring up.
I don't think they get into too many details as far as like a
Okay.
factory, what do we do if factories are,
Right.
but like maybe a large scale spill could be.
Or large
Mhm.
fire, I guess it was another one that had been brought up, access to such a large fire, I don't know.
A question I have is, what I read in the Independent, your research, I think it's about 3.38 of an acre per animal. That's pretty
That's
heavy.
Animal unit.
That's pretty heavy dose, you know, and so let's say we got the 1,100 or 1,400 acres, okay, that's gonna be a pretty rich load there, okay. Is there gonna be any follow-up on testing on whether that's, and I think the concern's phosphorus, but, does that mean he's gonna have to just keep going further and further away from the barn to get this stuff spread in years, you know, to come, and how are we gonna monitor that? Is that gonna be tested or
When
something?
we're, in Utica Town, and we've had to do nutrient management plans for years in order to be, under the exclusive ag zoning. And we're required to test our soil, every year,
Uh-huh.
or every 4
Every
years,
4
but
years.
we do it more often than that.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that's
good for
one
you.
of the big red flags is managing that phosphorus level in your nutrient management plan.
Have you had to adjust where you go?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
You do.
and sometimes you can adjust what you're feeding, adjust maybe animal units, but, that's a big part of, that is one really big red flag on your nutrient management
Well,
plan.
it's ironic to me that the whole, looks like most of the county is starving for manure. I mean, no manure gets on a lot of the land, these crop farmers. But
So-
then you've
But
got
it's
a
so
concentrated,
concentrated,
yeah.
One of the questions that I have though is if you're talking about 3.3 acres per animal.
Point three.
No.
No, 0.38.
0.38,
0.38 per animal unit.
third of an acre.
No, what you're saying is required.
Oh,
No.
there isn't really a
He
set
said he'd
requirement.
like to see
Yeah.
like
Okay,
3
so my
acres.
question then is, you've got people that are rotational grazing who have less than an acre per animal.
It's not liquid manure.
So
Right.
then do you have to include them in your ordinance?
It's not liquid manure rotational
But
grazing.
that, it's still, you still have that small of an amount of acres per animal. So we always have to be careful of unintended consequences.
So-
Absolutely.
So, yeah, you have to be careful if you're approaching 1 acre or less per animal unit, you have to be extremely careful, especially if it's liquid manure, like Joe says. So,
So we just have to be careful
Yes.
of intended consequences.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
my other comment is, to me, this seems like an ordinance issue.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so, this is not, an ordinance isn't something we can generate overnight. So, technically, Roth has the ability to build, because the DNR approved it based on our motion from last year, he can start anytime he wants. How long does it take to get an ordinance changed?
Well, I think we're talking about ordinance changes for any new
But that's what this is leading to. I can see that this
Yeah.
is the end result, is people want an ordinance
That's
changed.
what I said. I said, I think there are some things that we could include that are in, in the purview of this 51, whatever that is, law, that the counties can do additionally to what we currently have, that would help to protect the groundwater. That's, that, in my mind, that's what we should do, and still, and you're right, it'll require an ordinance change, and it won't probably happen overnight. But I think if this, Dave circulates the draft of all the study that people did before, we might be able to glean off of that something that can be included that's allowable as far as, the DNR law, so.
Mary, what's that standard you're working towards, a 1 animal unit per acre?
No, I was just going by what Forrest said, that they'd like to see 3 acres
Oh,
per
yeah.
animal unit, or per acre, but I know guys that are rotational grazing,
Yeah, but,
graze it to one of our
Yeah.
neighboring farmers is like 0.7 acres per animal,
yeah.
so unintended consequences.
Right.
Well, the DNR's been approving Roth Feeder Pig I at less than half an acre per animal unit for over a decade now.
Well, but I'm just going by what you would like to see.
Right.
You say you would like to see, and honestly, for those of us that we're trying to make a living milking cows, we always had to have less than 3 acres. We always did, we just did, because
Right.
you have a limited land base, and you have to milk a certain number of cows if you wanna keep milking cows.
Right.
So, we need to keep all those factors into consideration, because there will be farmers who can't meet that, and they're doing what they're doing because they wanna keep farming.
And I don't think we're proposing some ordinance that puts those specific numbers in. I don't think that's what's in any of that information from the, you know, from the committee when there was the moratorium. That's not the kind of ordinances that it was proposing.
No, not at all. And
Not
I
at
was
all.
on that committee in an advisory role right alongside Nikki Wagner, who wrote the nutrient management plan for Roth Feeder Pigs.
Yeah.
And the county staff, and so,
Yeah.
you know, this was a well-rounded document with all sides represented, and we came up with a 125-page report that I think has some really good information in there, and at the end, it has 8 concrete options that the county could have taken. Unfortunately, we gave the report, there was no discussion really, and then that was where things ended and hasn't been talked about since.
Could be
So,
revisited. Thanks for
that would
those
be good.
questions.
Well, we gotta move on here, we're
Yep.
gonna lose everybody here, so let's go to the vouchers.
So, Dave will do that, do we need any, do you need?
Let's just the
No,
recommendation
it's
of the
just-
committee, let's just go
As
ahead.
we all nod our heads and say yes,
Dave,
Dave, you
sure.
can do that.
Please.